This is my 2005 GMC Yukon, and today I'm going to tackle a silly little problem that's been there for a couple years, haven't dealt with it, been super lazy about it. My rear driver's side window hasn't rolled down in a couple years. I'm going to tackle that issue today. We got to have a brand new motor for it, and if that doesn't do it, I have a whole new regulator set up. So let's get after it. Because we're dealing with the electrical system of the truck, you always want to start by disconnecting the battery. So pop your hood, and then I like to disconnect the negative terminal of the battery. This particular truck has these side post terminals on it, so you get either a little wrench or a crescent wrench to back the negative terminal off, which is on this side of the battery right here. These two terminals are used in my truck for accessories like lighting and stereo. So I'm just using a crescent wrench here. Back it off. You can usually just take it off by hand. It'll spark a little bit. Just swing the negative terminal off to the side, make sure it doesn't sit on anything electrical or metal, and make sure your tools are free and clear of the battery terminals, and then move on to the next step. So today we're working on the driver's side rear door. I've already replaced this switch because I initially thought that was the issue. When you hit the controls on the driver's side door, you would hear clicking, but sometimes the clicking could just be a dead relay. So on these trucks, the relay for the motor is actually in the switch. So I have a fresh switch and relay in there, and that is not the problem. If you hit it, you hear clicking, and it is not activating anything down in here. So the only two other options for what the cause for this window not rolling down is the regulator, which is the mechanism that lowers the window up and down, is either jammed or broken, or the motor is shot. I'm going to start with replacing the motor because if the regulator is not broken and it still works, it's a much easier job just to swap out the motor. So let's get at it, and we'll start taking this door apart. I will be using a window motor from A Premium. I've ordered some parts off of Amazon made by this company in the past, and I've had pretty decent results. I will link this down in the description below. Okay, these doors are super easy to take off. You want to pop this piece out, just get a flathead or a little hook in there and pop that piece out. Then you have two options. You can either disconnect the switch when you have the door skin off, or pop this panel up and then disconnect it through here. And then you remove this little trim piece here, it just pops right out, and then right inside here where this handle meets, there's a, you can't really see it maybe from that angle, but there's a bolt in there, and then down in the bottom corner right here there's a bolt as well that holds the door on, and then the door up, and then lift it out and then peel it away gently because your speaker is in there and you just want to make sure that nothing is getting snagged. Just take your time at this point, and then we will start taking it apart. So here we go. Panel popper. Here we go. Okay, you're gonna start taking the door apart. So this just will pop out. This is your lock toggle from inside, and it's just held in with a couple poppers. There it goes. So yeah, just super simple. It's just friction held in. If you've never taken these doors apart, that's what that looks like inside. That's your lock mechanism. When you're putting it back, you want to make sure that's lined up with this pin right here, or it'll get a little funky for trying to unlock. Anyway, there's your interior. I gotta clean that, but there's your interior lock switch. Super easy. And I'm gonna take the switch out first because then it's easier to just disconnect the wire. No hassle, you're not gonna accidentally snag these wires. Because these older trucks, some of the interior wiring is starting to get a little brittle. So you just wanna take your time. This is a new switch, so I'm just being gentle with it. Don't want to hurt the trim on it. There we go. Super simple. And then it just disconnects. Where is it? It's right. So you just want to undo that little clip right there, and you just put a flathead in there. So I'm just gonna put the camera down and do that. Super simple. So the relay for these doors and the windows are actually in the switch. So you can see the switch is bigger than just a little switch, and it's got the relay built into it. So this is the control for the motor, but this is a brand new switch. You can hear the relay clicking when you either hit this or when you hit the driver's door. When you hit the driver's door controls, you hear this activating. So that makes me think that the motor is probably stuck or dead. So we're gonna start pulling the rest of the door out, and then we'll replace the motor first. If that doesn't solve the problem, then we'll go from there. Okay, so far we have the lock control and the window control out, and now we're gonna get this trim ring, this trim piece out around the handle. Again, it's just pop clips, so you just wanna get your panel popper in there. Just gently, nice and gently, it'll come. Just get your fingers in there. Start working it off. There it goes. And then you want to open the handle a little, make sure it's off at the bottom too, because there it goes. Yeah, so you want to open the handle a bit, and then it'll just come off like that. Super simple. Now, that's clear, so the door can move around that. This door's been off, this door skin's been off so many times because of the stereo work. So there. Boom. Door skin's off. Start peeling off. This is like a vapor barrier. Try to keep it as intact as possible, and if you have some, so you don't have to pull it all the way off, just enough so you can get access. You might have to pull the speaker out for a second. Yeah, okay. Fortunately, that speaker was busted, so we are going to peel this back, probably the whole lower half of the, and you can actually kind of just stick it up against itself. So right here is the motor. Here's the bracket for it. So we're just gonna probably take out the speaker bracket just to make our life a little easier. And then we'll pull out the old motor, put the new motor in, test everything before we close it back up. And one thing I like to do to make sure I'm not wasting time or energy is I have access to the old motor now, and I can see the control cable for it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just disconnect the old motor right here, plug this one in, I can quickly hook the battery back up, test this motor, disconnect the battery, and then start pulling everything apart. I just want to make sure that I'm getting a signal, because if that was the problem, then that's the solve, then we can continue with the fix, if that makes sense. So sometimes it's good if you can to test a part before you go all the way through the trouble of putting it in, because if it's not the problem and the problem's somewhere else, then it saves you time and effort. But here we go. For now, just to test everything, I'm going to disconnect this motor right here. It's just a little clip. Super simple. There's a 2-pin plug, so let's make sure that you line everything up properly. Click, that fit in nicely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reconnect the battery. I need to put the switch back on, sorry. So if you're gonna do the quick test, you gotta plug this back in, because nothing will work without this connected. Bam. So now that should complete the circuit. I'm gonna reconnect the battery quickly. If we get action on that motor, then we're in great shape. Okay, I have reconnected the battery, and I'm just gonna put the keys in ignition and just turn it to the ignition portion. And if I get motion on that motor, we're in good shape. Yeah, baby. Okay, that is great news. 3 10mm bolts, or nut, yeah, bolts. 1, 2, 3. That's the speaker cradle. You just got to get it out of the way just so you can get access to stuff, but because the speaker is wired through it, I'm going to have to swing it up out of the way and clip it up here. So yeah, I'm going to get that loosened off. So that should be loose, except it's running through the speaker, but now it's just out of the way. So now I don't, even though it's dangling, I can still pin it up and work around it. So I'm gonna go grab a caliper hanger just to get this up out of the way. Okay, so I've got the speaker bracket up out of the way, and now I have pretty clear and free access to the regulator and motor. So now I have to work on getting the motor and regulator disconnected and go from there. So it's a little tricky, but on the back side you can see there are, hopefully the camera's focusing, there are 3 8mm bolts. I'll show you where they are from the other side. So there is one there, and one there. And you just kind of gotta pull this back a bit and then come at it from behind. And so there they are in the back. You can see there's one right here, there's one up here, and then there's one, just being gentle with everything, of course. One right up here. So you back those off and the motor will separate from the regulator, and then you just bolt the new motor back on. Okay, after backing off these 3 nuts, that should release the bracket from the back. And then you should be able to just pop the motor out. There you can see there's the regulator. Well, I've got that in there open. I'm going to spray some WD-40 in there. There's just a hair of rust, but everything else seems to be in pretty good shape. And as you can see, there's the motor. Interesting to see the size comparison with the old motor up here, which is 20 years old, and then the new motor. So this is just an evolution, I guess, of kind of 12-volt electrical motors, is that they don't have to be as big to be as powerful. So I'm excited to get the new one in. Other difference too between this one and that one is this one has a metal back here and this one is plastic. I don't know what that does, but yeah, gonna throw the new one back in. So here we go. I'm gonna put this one in. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Almost hit my kayak. I'm just gonna hit that quick with some WD-40 just to, there's just a little bit of rust, make sure that it's neutralized. And then we're gonna start reversing everything we did. So here we go. I just sprayed a little bit of WD-40 in the regulator pocket just because it's been a few years since it's moved, so I don't wanna break anything the first time we fire that motor up. So I'm just gonna let that sit for a couple minutes and then put the new motor back in. So one thing I recommend doing is, because these are more of a screw style nut that goes into the back of the window motor versus a threaded machine nut, I would recommend pre-starting the screws before you, I would recommend pre-starting the screws just to give yourself a few threads turn into the plastic, because this actually cuts into the fresh plastic. That's why it's designed this way. It just cuts into the fresh plastic and creates its own thread. And that's how you tighten it down. Don't over tighten any of this stuff ever, because it's plastic and metal will always win. But yeah, that's a good tip, is that I would pre-start these because you're kind of doing it blind behind your back and you don't want to fight them as much. So I'd run them down a few threads and then just back them back off. When you throw them back through the sandwich with the regulator and the bracket, everything will thread in properly and nicely. So I'm gonna just finish threading this one in a bit, then I'll back them all off. Yeah, just thread them in about that much, just so you have enough bite on the plastic, so that when you're doing this behind the bracket, you're not trying to get the threads started. And then yeah, back them back out and you should be good to go. So I'll take the bracket in. And again, you don't have to do this inside the door pocket. Inside the door, you can do it out, because you will need some access to, just make sure you don't pinch any of these wires under anything. You want access to all the bolts in the back. Once you get that lined up, the motor and the regulator line up pretty effortlessly. You just gotta make sure that you get everything sandwiched properly. These cables will be in the way, but that's fine. Just make sure you're not sandwiching anything that doesn't need to be where it is. So yeah, I find if you just get once you have the gear meshed, you don't have to worry about the regulator and the motor lining up. If it's in and sitting nice, then you're golden. You just need to get the bracket in and aligned, and so just get one of them started up top. Having those couple of pre-threads will help at this point, because then you're not fighting the bracket too much. It's a little awkward doing it behind. It feels very solid. And then just give them all once more, like a half turn. Oh, you'll feel it tighten up. You'll feel it tighten right up if you keep going. But just once you feel it tighten up, stop. Because if you strip out that plastic, then your motor won't be sitting super tight. Okay, so now we have the new motor on the regulator. We're going to tuck the regulator bracket back into place. There's a little lip right here. It helps for alignment, so that sits right there. Then you just got to line up your bolt holes. Then you drop the speaker bracket back down into its place, and then you run the 4 10mm bolts we undid. That's the machine screws. You're gonna have one here, one at the bottom right there, and then one at the top just holding the speaker bracket. But the bottom 2 of the speaker bracket also mount the top of the regulator mount. And then you've got one bottom regulator mount there, and then you've got, when this is in place up here, there'll be one more for a total of 4. So let's get those back into place. Okay, so then we plug the motor back in. And we just tuck that down in there. And then, okay, so we have the new motor back in, and everything's plugged back in. All the brackets have been hooked back up. Got my speaker back in place. So now I'm gonna, before I put the door skin back on, I'd like to test this in case something's wrong. Then I don't have to pull the door skin back off. So I'm gonna plug the switch back in up here, reconnect the battery. So there's the switch. Doesn't do anything right now. Reconnect the battery. We know the motor works. We know the switch works because we saw the motor work when we tested it earlier. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna reconnect the battery. If the window comes up and down without any issues, then we're good to go. So this is exciting. Hopefully everything works. Hey, this window has not moved in a few years. Oh, that's good to see. We did it. Now we put the rest of the door back together and we'll test it one more time. Okay, just before we put the door skin back on, I disconnected the switch again so it's not in the way, making sure that the vapor barrier is as close to where it was as you can get it, and make sure that some of that kind of butyl glue is back doing its job. Like I said before, once you have the door skin back on, it kind of pushes it and sandwiches it in between the door frame. But yeah, as long as you can get it looking to about how it was and as sealed as you can get it. The doors do have drains in case any moisture gets in, but it just helps keep the electronics that are in the door safe and sound. So then at this point, you grab your door skin. If you've never seen the back side, there's some hooks. Let's see what you can see. Yeah. So these hooks rest kind of in here and here. And then this, and then there's a big hook right here, that's this one. And then this one rests right up in there. And then there's some lower ones as well. Basically, you just want to lift the door card straight up when you're taking it off, and then you want to get it in and then go straight down to get up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 hooks, 7 or 8 hooks, yeah. And then don't forget your bolts. If you ever wanted to clean the grills of your speakers, you actually just unbend these tabs here and pop them out. I need to repaint these grills because they're looking pretty rough, but that's a job for another day and another video. But they come out very easily. There is no glue or anything keeping those grills on, so you can pop them out, get a fresh set, get a different color, spray paint them, do whatever you want. Pretty neat fun. So here we go. I'm gonna put this back together. You want to pull the switch cable up through its hole. And then just kind of come up over the top a little bit. This lip sits on this lip. So you get it all lined up, and then it's kind of just all, make sure the bottom parts are lined up as well. That's good. You have to kind of take a couple cracks at it, that's fine. And you'll know it's properly in place because it won't be sitting weird or anything. It'll be completely flush all the way around the bottom, up the sides, and that the door handle release can move freely. Another good test to make sure it's in the right place is that when you go to put this piece back on, it doesn't sit weird and it locks back into place properly. Because sometimes they can sit a little bit high or weird, but if that goes into place, it moves freely, you're in good shape. Then as you're reversing the process, you gotta put your switch back in. Make sure that clicks in nicely. Little clip. Yeah, and then that just friction fits down into its hole. Boom, nice and clean. And then the last thing, your lock switch here. So when the door's open, it's red. So then you want to make sure that is slid over. When you line it up, it just drops right in. Boom. Make sure that cycles and that you can hear the door lock. Another good way to test it. Door's locked. Door's unlocked. Door's locked. Door's unlocked. So that's good. So then when you got it together one more time, just give it another test. We did it. Okay. Okay, that's how you fix the window motor on a 2005 GMC Yukon. I appreciate everybody watching. If you have any questions, please throw them down below in the comments. I try to respond to everything, but thanks so much for watching. What we did today applies to any of the 99 to 2006 Tahoe, Yukon, Suburban, Yukon XL, and any of the Silverado or Sierra trucks. It's going to be all very similar for the four doors. As far as the rear doors are concerned, they're basically all the same motors and guts inside the doors, whether you got a Yukon or a Tahoe or a Sierra, Silverado, anything like that. I'll link the motor below, and I'll also link the window regulator that I have on order in case you're having problems with your window regulator. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.